This is Rudy Giuliani, and this is America's Mayor Live. And no Pope. That means no Pope yet, which of course is understandable since they just got in there. And I think, except for some meditation and prayer, maybe even a sermon by the priest and bishop that was left behind, and then they left. I think the first thing they do is vote. It's like getting an initial vote right away. So it would be almost impossible that you'd get 2/3 vote on the first ballot. When you consider you probably have a lot of favorite son candidates, like, in a convention, meaning you may not ultimately vote for your best friend. You'll vote for one of the 3 or 4 or 5 major ones, but maybe that first vote you want to give to the guy you were in the seminary with, or the cardinal you become very close to, or one that you believe is the most qualified, but you know that he's not going to get majority. He's not going to get majority support. So it's very unlikely that on that first ballot you would get you'd get a pope. So although we covered it on the earlier show, since we have like a big new audience, let's just bring you up to date on what's going on. I mean, this morning, the Cardinals all assembled. It would have been about 4 o'clock our time, about 10 or so their time, maybe 9:30, 10 their time, for mass in the Pauline Chapel, which is right to the as you enter the Sistine Chapel, got a gigantic hall outside. It's the chapel to the left. Now, what you're watching there is one of the most dramatic ceremonies of all. That is the sealing of the doors of the Sistine Chapel. Ain't nobody going to be allowed out of there. And if they do go out of there, like God forbid they're sick, they don't go back. They can't go back.
And so, what's the Latin phrase that's inscribed above the door?
I'll have to go.
Oh, we haven't got it. Okay.
Yeah, I have it here.
Comment below if you know it. I'm sure actually a lot of our audience does.
I bet. Yeah, tell us the phrase.
Oh, those Swiss Guard uniforms are quite gorgeous.
I must say. So they are they're engaged in the voting now. And maybe I should just review with them one time the
front runners,
the candidates, the front runner candidates. Let's see. Well,
so who's the current favorite remains Cardinal Parolin, correct?
Do we have the?
We do. So we'll start with the top guy. I would say Cardinal Parolin.
The top one is Pietro Parolin, who is the Secretary of State, Italian. He's one of 3 Italians on the list, which is kind of unusual because I don't think there is going to be an Italian pope. But Pietro Parolin, right here, he's the Secretary of State. He is considered one of the liberal candidates, although he might be more middle of the road than liberal. He gets the liberal designation because of his negotiations with China and allowing China way too much discretion in the selection of bishops, having way too much to say, which led to about a year and a half standoff between the papacy and the Red Chinese government. Exactly what we're doing, allowing the Red Chinese government to have opinions on the church they want to destroy, is a little ridiculous. But that's Parolin, and he's a Secretary of State, and you would have to consider him a one-worlder, World Economic Conference, although more institutionally committed than the next one, Luis Antonio Tagle, who is a complete, possibly more progressive, more left-wing, more willing to change the church than Francis. And he was a very, very big supporter of all of Francis's changes in the church, including a very big opponent of the Latin Mass. I can't imagine that Parolin, being an Italian, a opponent of the Latin Mass. If he is, then there's really something wrong with him. Matteo Zuppi is the third, and he is also a carbon copy of Francis, it said. So you got your first three candidates, all of whom are non-traditional, which is kind of sad because the church needs a correction to reestablish its roots, particularly since that's where its new people are coming from. If you want to make a cold, hard-headed decision on how to build the Church of Christ, the new people they're getting, including not just in Africa, but in America, are coming to them for stability. Because with all of the problems that Francis created, you take a look at all the problems in the other establishment churches, and the Catholic Church looks like, excuse the expression, a rock. Even a wobbly rock is better than no rock at all. If this church were to stabilize on a set of very firm moral principles that have, been their moral principles for 2,000 years, the church would grow. I mean, it's growing already, but it would grow dramatically. Now, the last three that have the very small numbers are the conservative candidates, probably in the reverse order. Peter Turkson is probably the most conservative because, by and large, the African bishops and archbishops are fiercely conservative and extremely loyal. They stood up to the Pope when the Pope said, you can bless gay marriage. Now, I'm okay with it, but I understand why the more conservative religious people wouldn't be. And also, he is a very, very strong supporter of the Latin Mass. Isn't that funny? An African is a bigger supporter of the Latin Mass than Zuppi and Paroline, two Italians. So right away he becomes my candidate. And I liked the other one too. I think Turkson has taken over for. Remind me of the name of the other African, the Ghanaian bishop. Sarah.
We don't see him in the.
Well, it's because he's 79. Which and maybe he's not the healthiest guy. A guy 79 wouldn't be bad if he lived 4 or 5 years, but a guy 79 that dies in a year or two would be a terrible mistake. So it may be that Turkson, who looks rather hardy here, and we saw a picture of him actually signing. And he looks like he's in good shape. I think he's about 75. He's not a baby, but that's almost exactly the right age. I would say that they're going to look for a cardinal that can give him anywhere from 7, 6 minimum, 10 maximum. I don't think they're sufficiently stabilized to want a pope for 15 or 20 years, which counts out maybe the best candidate.
Right.
And not because of his name, but
because of his age.
Pizzaballa.
Oh, he's younger.
65. And look at him. Look at the shape he's in. And he's also about 6'2". So he's going to get one of those big robes.
Right. Yeah.
And he's the patriarch of Jerusalem, who offered himself in exchange for the hostages. He said, I'll let you Muslims take me. And that group of Muslim, Hamas, they hate Jews, but they don't like Christians very much either.
Right.
Muhammad told them to kill both, by the way. He didn't make a distinction between the Jews and the Christians. Hated the Jews completely for one set of reasons, hated the Christians for another set of reasons, and hated everybody but the people that converted or gave him money. And Peter Erdo is from Hungary, and also clearly an institutional supporter of the Latin Mass, wants to keep the moral values of the church, does not want them wokerized. I made up a word, Ted.
But well, it makes sense to me. That's a new word we're gonna use.
Yeah, going woke.
Wokerize.
We were surprised last night by the attack. On. Well, let's take a look. That's the way.
Wow. Is that a real picture or
that's a real picture.
recreate? Wow.
That's a real picture. That's what it looks like. Empty. It's quite beautiful. And you can see up here Michelangelo's frescoes, including the Creation. Imagine he did it on his back. Italians are so talented, particularly from the hills of outside of Florence, like my grandfather came from. Many of the cardinals, when they walked in, were doing this.
Even during the prayer.
The cardinals were. And we were just there about 5 weeks ago, and my head was hurting. I walked all the way from the back to this little place back here. I walked all the way from here, from the back. This is the private part. This is the chapel part. There's a gate, and then there's the public part. So you walk along here, and I walked all the way up to there, and I swear to God, I must have bumped into 5 people because I was walking like this.
I can imagine. And how do you not take photos when you're in there?
I don't know, but you're not supposed to.
I think everyone. I bet some of these cardinals have.
I'll dig out a few when we have it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I want to show them because
By the
I
way,
think the Monsignor who gave me prayer beads from John Paul II might be angry at me if I took the pictures. No, he can't be angry. He was with me when I did it.
Yeah.
They told us we could take pictures. I felt very guilty.
Yeah. But
Really?
then somebody came up eventually.
Nobody else could.
Somebody else came. One of the guards came up eventually and said, "You're not supposed to do that." And maybe you didn't hear it. It was after we came out.
Sorry, I don't speak Italian. I wouldn't be able to.
No, we didn't
That'd be
say it
mine.
in Italian. He said it in English.
Yeah, that would be my way. How do you not? They must know. People are.
Yes.
I think God would understand. God will let that one slide.
That's the three robes. 3 different robes.
Short, medium, and
if
tall.
So if it's Pizza Balla, that's going to be the one right here. Or maybe Paroline. He looks pretty tall too.
Right.
But if it's Toggle, it'll be this one.
Right.
And if it's Turks, it'll be that one.
The other ones on the other side are those. If we elect a kid or what?
No, that's
Those are tiny.
That's his stall.
Oh, those are different. Those are just shirts on the other side.
This is
or
all for the
shirts.
Pope.
Yes.
But this is the main. This is the main.
The
vestment that he
robe,
wears.
the vest.
The Cardinals wear red, and he wears white.
Right.
The Pope wears white.
Well, they'll have all those ready. You'll have a nice Italian tailor ready to go.
Italian tailor will make sure that they're just right.
You would guess, unless maybe does a new pope maybe get to bring their own tailor? Let's say a pope has a cardinal has a tailor,
I
right?
think after Francis, it would be frowned upon
Oh,
to have a tailor.
I don't think
Yeah.
Francis had a tailor.
I have a feeling you
you'd
didn't.
start to
Yeah.
look like the kind of people that work for the State Department.
Yeah, they'll have one there. Yeah.
Foppy State Department type people.
Right. Yeah. They've got their own tailors.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't do any
they're
good
okay.
because they're so ridiculous. looking, but-
Yeah.
Well, and also I think is Prada still doing the shoes? Maybe are they going to go back to Prada?
He never
shoes?
wore them.
Well, I know Francis didn't, but
Francis wore sneakers.
will they give
Really?
them, will they? Can we go back to the Prada shoes?
I
kinda
have a
like that.
feeling. I have a feeling nobody's going back.
That's
Gonna be-
if
it'll be
anybody
tough to
went
go back.
I
Yeah.
will.
It's tough to
I'll
go
go
back.
if anybody went back, it would be Paroline, who's the state secretary of state.
He's
which
probably
is-
got it.
And the State Department in the Vatican is like our State Department.
Right.
It's filled with a bunch of pretentious phonies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it happens when you're a diplomat. You're constantly selling your soul.
Right.
Even if you're a cardinal, you're selling out to the red Chinese.
Well, I'm very curious, Mayor, on what sort of internal politicking is going on
Well, I
over at the Vatican
if you want,
tonight and tomorrow.
If you want and please don't use it for betting. I would feel very bad if you did. If you want my analysis, if it happens tomorrow morning, it's going to be Paroline or Tagle. The minute you get to the next 2 ballots and it's not them, you can start to move away from them.
Okay.
And here's the problem they have, right? The progressives, and this could be very dangerous because then they come up with another progressive. But the progressives have the majority of the votes.
Yep.
They have 46, 50. They got 57% of the vote is going to progressive candidates. But it's 3 of them. So they're they may very well shoot themselves down. But somebody else. But if those 57 are voting for those 3 because they're progressive, then they're going to be available for second-tier progressive candidates, not for liberal candidates.
Yes.
Not for conservative candidates. The conservative vote on the board is 24%.
And when are they going to start calling racism from the left? It's the Africans. They
Well,
don't like the Africans.
I mean, if I could do a campaign here, I'd start with the racism thing. You better vote for Turks in
Right. That's how the left operates in
But
American politics.
wouldn't it
That's
be
how
the
Kamala
most-
Harris became.
You're
the
saying
nominee.
Sarah looks angry? What are you saying?
We all, the African bishops look the most friendly too.
No.
They're smiling all the time, and they're smart as hell. You know, these people are all like 3, 4, 5 language people.
Yes.
Oh, right.
3/4 of the cardinals speak at least 3 languages, and the top guys, do like 4 or 5.
Which is more common outside of the U.S., I will say.
Yeah, it's more common outside the U.S., and of course, their training in the seminary allows for that. I mean, they got a lot of time to study.
You know, I wish that's why one reason to keep Latin is just to have a common language among those
Well,
cardinals.
I think the training in Latin certainly helps them master all the Latin languages very quickly.
Yeah.
So now you got 4 or 5 languages.
Yeah.
It certainly helps with English vocabulary.
What do you think the common denominator is down there? What language do you think prevails?
Latin.
Well, not every cardinal.
No, it's Italian actually.
Yeah, so I would say,
Basically, if you become a cardinal, you learn Italian.
Don't you
Italian.
think? Don't you think they still, for the most part, know Latin?
Yeah, but
These-
they
if
don't
you're a
talk
car-
Latin.
I actually,
If you're a
Ted,
cardinal-
I believe that is not the case.
No, if you're a cardinal now, chances are you
If
went
you
through the
were a
church
cardinal
40,
now, you
50
learn
years
Latin
ago.
like I did.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
But it has been like, no, not everyone, like in some of these areas, they don't have a good Latin education. And so
These
that's
are
why,
cardinals, though.
well, I know, but that's what was funny was Pope Benedict, when he said something in Latin, you could gauge the reaction among the cardinals and who knew Latin
Right.
and who didn't.
Well,
because
Interesting,
because there would be a reaction, and like he would say, like, you know, pretty crazy, not crazy, but like
Important.
It
news.
could be this group of cardinals that might be a little less, because he
It's interesting.
depending on how you evaluate this, Francis appointed non-traditional cardinals
Right.
from places that, like, he didn't appoint a cardinal in Los Angeles. He didn't appoint a cardinal was there one in Chicago?
Do you think we have a
Yes,
transgender
yeah,
pope
Arch-
or cardinal?
He has them in small cities.
Right.
And he didn't always, a lot of being a cardinal often meant going to the seminary and having, as a student, going to the seminary in Rome. Like,
Right.
American cardinals go to the American college in Rome.
Right.
If you graduate from that college, you probably got a 70-80% better chance of being a cardinal. It's a little like going to the military academy.
Right.
And that's true all over the world. They have academies at Rome, like those African cardinals. Those are all extremely well-educated men.
Right.
And where would
weren't
they be
educated in
educated?
Africa. They were educated in Rome.
They're educated in Rome from what age?
Maybe from college on.
Okay.
Maybe high school even.
Yeah.
And they make a decision early on, the ones that they think have a future, and they bring them to Rome.
Right.
And from early on, they become multilingual.
Yes.
And from early on, they learn the Vatican,
Yes.
and they have and it's like they have connections
Right.
from way back.
List of cardinals.
There's a very good book that you could also read. It's very old. It's called The Cardinal, and it's about a cardinal of Boston. And he is educated in Rome. It also was a movie that wasn't successful, unfortunately, that didn't do well, and did not do a great job didn't do a great job to the novel, which was one of the great novels of the 1950s. It's called The Cardinal, and it describes the history of this fictitious cardinal of Boston, and explains again what happened in Rome, because he's educated in Rome. So the India, Pakistan, are they going to have a war or aren't they going to have a war? Here's what happened, right? The
Mayor,
yes.
before we start this new subject, I do want to mention we have a very special guest.
Oh, who do we have?
And he's been on for a couple of minutes. Your
let's get him.
longtime friend. I'll let you do the introduction.
Oh, it's Joe already?
Mr. Joe DeGenova.
There he is, one of our great lawyers, Joe DeGenova.
Viva il Papa.
So, are you betting on this, or do you think it's sacrilegious to bet on a?
I was actually thinking it might be a cardinal from Africa, but it looks like the fix is in for the progressives.
Yeah, they got. I mean, you look at the betting line. They've got about 56% of the vote.
Yeah.
I would take a cardinal, any one of them from Africa. They're all nice and traditional.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid the numbers aren't there, but
Yeah.
it's going to be fascinating to watch it. It's been an incredible. By the way, a great movie that Victoria and I just watched last night is called The Conclave. And
Oh yeah. I think it's a great movie, except for the ending. It gets a little weird, right?
yeah, but that's it. Who knows who we made a cardinal?
You think we're gonna have a pope that has ovaries?
I don't know. It's hard to tell these days.
I wanted to ask you, Joe, what you thought of Senator Tillis and his effort to block U.S. Attorney Martin from your old job. Joe was one of the greatest U.S. attorneys in the history of the District of Columbia, and it's a little different than U.S. attorney anywhere else. So I was a U.S. attorney in New York, and I did only federal prosecutions, federal cases. U.S. attorney in the district is a district attorney too.
That's right.
He's the district attorney for a big city, and he's the U.S. attorney for a big federal government. And it's a tough job because you have to be two things. So, what do you think? Why is Tillis doing this?
Well, Tillis is a very strange senator, and he suffers from January 6th syndrome. He was present in the Capitol that day and took particular umbrage at all of the events, and has apparently never gotten over it, and has not sought counseling to get out from under it. And watching him object to Ed Martin because Ed represented January 6th defendants is ludicrous. What would he expect people to do? Not be represented by a lawyer? What I think Tillis he's not a sophisticated senator. He's kind of a guy who really lacks the depth necessary to be a senator. And you see it in an issue like this. There was a way to handle this. And he just couldn't figure out a way to do it. I mean, I think he blames President Trump for all of January 6th, which is an absolutely ignorant position.
Right.
And if you're that ignorant and if you're that strung out over January 6th, of course, a guy like Ed Martin, who did his job and represented January 6th defendant, is a guy you're not going to like. I think Tillis has become an embarrassment on this one, but I don't know if Ed's going to make it or not. The president
they say that Tillis has support among some of the other, should I say rhinos or whatever? I mean, or some of the other not terribly loyal senators.
Right.
So I feel very
to stay quiet. All of them have decided to stay quiet because they don't want to offend Trump, and they're happy to have Tillis do it.
Yeah,
the problem for Ed is that Tillis on the Judiciary Committee. Yeah. And if he loses Tillis, he can't get out of committee.
Well, I particularly am offended for the grounds on which he's doing it, because it's showing he hasn't educated himself on all of the new facts that have come out about January 6th.
Correct.
That cast a tremendous doubt on the narrative that was created. I mean, for example, somebody should be investigating the murder of Ashley Babbitt. Ed should be, I don't know if he is, but he should be investigating the murder of Ashley Babbitt. There's no statute of limitations on homicide.
That's correct.
And that homicide case is as good as the day I gave it to them. Maria and I boxed up all the evidence we had and gave it to the U.S. attorney then in the district, because I said to myself, they may cover up for a lot of things, but they won't cover up a murder. Well, they did. And also a lot of those cases, you know, the QAnon shaman, if you look at that, the cops were laughing at him. And they opened the door of the Senate, of the House for him to get in.
Right.
They opened the door and let him in. I don't know. How is that a trespass? The guy opens the door to the House.
I think the case that bothers me the most is Ashley Babbitt. The captain Captain Byrd, who shot her. If you look at his history with the department, he left his gun in a bathroom in the Capitol. He had all sorts of problems as an officer, and yet you see him constantly promoted. He got hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments. They hit him for 7 months down at one of the Air Force bases around the Capitol to quote unquote protect him. I think that whoever the new U.S. attorney is, they should open up the Ashley Babbitt investigation. That case was closed. It was an outrageous decision by Merrick Garland and Matthew Graves, the hack U.S. attorney for Joe Biden. I think that case should be reopened. I agree with you 100%.
Well, I'm glad. And give my regards to Vicky, huh?
Will do.
We'll talk. We'll see you soon.
You bet.
All right. Now, there's one great lawyer, I'll tell you. That's the reason the Teamsters Union is straightened out. You just saw him. We brought the case right at the end of my time as U.S. attorney, the civil case. In fact, it was brought by Randy Mastro, who is now the chief deputy mayor in New York under Adams. And he was my chief deputy mayor. And Randy and I brought the case against the Teamsters. And the judge entered, you're now aware of what these injunctions are. The judge entered an injunction, ultimately, that they were mafia controlled and therefore removed their entire board. And we were allowed to appoint independent, neutral board members, and they remained with the Teamsters for about 7 or 8 years with Joe in charge. And he converted them. Not only did he do that, Central States Pension Fund was the major investor in Las Vegas. The major investor in the Central States Pension Fund were not the pension funds of the Teamsters. It was the illegal drug and gambling money of the mafia, which is how the mafia controlled most of the casinos. The famous deal with Frank Sinatra that you have to perform there 5 times a year. So he broke that all. Got Central States, got the mafia money out of the Central States Pension Fund, got the mafia out of Las Vegas, and it wasn't turned back to them until that was all certified. And now it's a you can disagree with it as a union, but it's a straight, honest, and it's always been a patriotic union. Even when it was mafia, it was very American and very patriotic. It was never one of the communist unions like the teachers. So he's did a great job. That's Joe DeGenova. So we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting.
deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Well, here we are back at St. Peter's. Here we are back in Palm Beach, the America's Mayor Live, and that, of course, is the square of St. Peter's. Now the Cardinals are resting. They should be. It's 5 hours. We're 5 hours later in Italy, right? 6 hours later. So it's 6 hours later. It's the middle of the night, and they'll be up again. 4 in the morning, and it probably is going to wake me up because I want to see if they're going to do 2 in the morning.
Yes.
They're doing 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon from now on.
Is that right?
For 3 straight days.
For us, for our time.
Yeah.
So what time is the next vote? Our time will be
2 a.m. You're saying 2 to 10 Eastern time?
Yeah. The next vote, our time will be. Well, let's go back from noon. So what time? That's 6 in the morning for us.
Oh, exciting! Right in the morning, bright and early.
So they're going to take 2 before lunch, and they take lunch at 12 or 1 Italian time.
So that's right, Mayor. The next vote will take place around 10:30 a.m. local time. That's 4:30 a.m. here on the East Coast.
And then probably everyone 2 hours later.
And they're expecting the second round around noon.
Around noon.
So the 2 votes in the morning, they combine as one.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
then they're going to take lunch, and they're going to come back late. Then they're going to come back around 4 o'clock.
Yep, there'll be the
4 or
next
5 o'clock their time.
right. If neither vote is successful, the ones we just mentioned, the next 2 ballots will take place around 5:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. their local time at the Vatican.
So that would be around noontime, right before noon and at noon our time.
Right. That would be about 11:30 and 1 p.m.
So basically, it's 3 days of 2 ballots in the morning, Italian morning, 2 ballots in Italian early evening, late afternoon, early evening. Then that repeats itself: 2 ballots, 2 ballots, 2 ballots. After 3 days of no pope, they are permitted to and recommended, they don't have to do it, to take a day off.
Yes.
And a day off for prayer, not for campaigning.
Right.
That day off is going to be handled like a retreat would be handled,
Right.
where there'll be even sermons given to them.
No campaigning. You don't expect any campaigning.
It isn't the same kind of campaigning that they don't like give out
Like
pictures,
pamphlets.
and they're not online, and they don't make robocalls. This is Rudy Giuliani calling you in favor of Cardinal Turkson. I've known Cardinal Turkson for quite some time. He's a conservative like you and me. I love the Latin Mass, and he's going to let the Latin Mass come back in. Don't you think these Italians are really jackasses when they're against the Latin Mass? I do. I'm Italian, and I'm embarrassed. So vote for Cardinal Turkson. And if he can vote more than once, please do it.
That's good copy. I like that. I'm voting for that guy.
For Turkson.
Right.
If I could vote.
It's about time we have an African cardinal.
That's right.
I mean, why? What is this? Racism of some kind?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the left.
What's the fastest growing part of the Catholic Church?
Is it Africa or
And what?
Southeast Asia?
You won't make a black pope?
Right. But of
Maybe
course,
we could get to some of those. Maybe we get to some of those weak liberals that way.
right.
Make them start feeling guilty.
Right.
But you see,
Right.
you can't campaign.
Get them all twisted.
We could go get like one of those crooked Democratic types.
Well,
because if God would forgive us if it was
Right.
the will of the Holy Spirit.
well, these Democrats all of a sudden now they're
Sometimes
all big
the Holy
Catholic.
Spirit works in strange ways.
Well, there's such devout Catholics now. They're so offended by that Pope AI image, right? Because they're so devoted to the faith. Well, Mayor, on that note, speaking of great Catholics, I think you know the next gentleman we're about to have on.
Yeah, well, I kind of disagreed with this choice.
Yeah. So
this was the best choice. You're now going to see the best choice that President Trump made.
That's right. And let's bring him on, Andrew Giuliani. Andrew, you're
Giuliani, who is was appointed as.
I'm having trouble hearing you here. We're at the congressional soccer game, obviously pulling for the Republicans here. First, I guess, soccer game. We're not calling it football per President Trump. We're calling it soccer still, which is good. That was one of the first recommendations from the task force. This is soccer, and we're going to do great at soccer, but if this is soccer here, and we're pulling for the Republicans tonight to make sure that they get a few more goals than the Democrats over here. But it's very exciting. It was a great honor to have America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani at my swearing in at the Department of Homeland Security. I guess it was less than a week ago now. To watch him dance his daughter on the dance floor, to give his daughter away was certainly something special. And then to be in the White House yesterday, to be with President Trump, Vice President Vance, and many of the cabinet members, to hear the start of this task force, how important this is from a safety and security perspective. I know there are a few people in American history that are more equipped to talk about the safety and security aspect of this than America's mayor. So I don't know if this would be an informal advisory position or whatever, but I think I'd like to ask you, would you be willing to be an advisor to the task force for the World Cup for the White House in 2026?
I have a particular bias in favor of the director. Yeah. I think it was the best choice President Trump made. So.
Well, thank you, Dad.
Have a score? You got a score in that game?
Score.
Right now, let's see. Yeah, Republicans are up. I don't know if you can see it in the background. 2-1 Republicans right now. So we're off to a good start over here. We got a ways to go.
Well, let us know.
2-1. I was kind of pulling. I was pulling for a shutout, to be honest. So I'm a little disappointed already. But as long as we get the win, then that's okay.
Well, congratulations, Andrew.
Congratulations, Andrew.
And we're going to be in very good hands. Thank you.
Hey, I love you. When I can hear you, I can't wait to come back on more.
Yep.
And God bless you, Dad.
God bless you. What a great
Love
choice. Love you too. Well, Andrew is the director of, this is a position from the Homeland Security, because it basically involves security of the swearing. It was yesterday. Oh yeah, we have pictures of it. We'll show it when we come back. So he's a director of the World Cup for America, and they're going to have something like a dozen venues. Now you can't imagine. I mean, this is a security. I'm not going to say nightmare, because it's much worse than a nightmare. Think of one Super Bowl. Multiply it by 12, and not just one game. So in New York, I think there'll be 6 or 7 games. So it's 12, approximately 12 different Super Bowl locations, and about 4 or 5 Super Bowl games in those locations on different days. That's the security that has to be provided, and you're going to have countries there that bring, like I did security for the Asian Games. I've done some Olympic security, and I've done security for big world events. Not just as mayor. I did that as mayor every year with 150 world leaders coming in for the UN. But I did it as a business. And I used to describe it as like when you have an Olympics, which sounds great, right? We're going to have the Olympics in Boston. We're going to have the Olympics in Los Angeles. We have the Olympics in Paris. You bring all the problems of the world there, not just your problems, because all the countries in the world are there. So if you have separatists on the border of Spain and France, they may decide to come and blow up one of the two teams. I mean, the last real terrible attack was on the Israeli team in Germany. It wasn't in Israel, because the problems of the world come to that venue. And here's why Andrew has got one hell of a job, and the people with it. They inherited America thanks to the trade of Biden that has an unknown number of terrorists. We can't possibly have tracked down and recorded in any meaningful way the number of terrorists that came in over the 4 years of 15 million people coming in who we didn't know. And we have no idea how many of them were terrorists. It could be, would have to be at least 500,000-600,000. Could be 2 million. How would we know? We never saw them. And why would we think the terrorists wouldn't take advantage of it? They wouldn't be terrorists if they didn't take advantage of it, or they wouldn't be terrorists we should worry about. The terrorists took advantage of it. The cartels, of course, managed it. And also, this will be exacerbated by the fact that the connection between ISIS and some of the terrorist groups and the Mexican cartels is an over 25-year connection. These are not like, they weren't new to each other when we had that criminal president. They were doing this stuff. They were doing this stuff back on 9/11. But the cartels weren't as sophisticated then. They weren't anywhere near as rich. And even the terrorist groups weren't as sophisticated. But they were paying the cartels money. I'm talking about bin Laden. They were paying money to come in over the Mexican border. And the only ones we ever tracked were over the northern border. If you think, well, they weren't coming in, they were coming in much more successfully in the southern border. At least we were able to get some kind of record of them from the northern border. I remember a major entry in the northern border that almost led to the canceling of the 2000 New Year's celebration in New York, the Millennium Celebration. And that was bin Laden. That was while Clinton was bombing Serbia instead of responding to bin Laden. Bin Laden was bombing the hell out of us, including one of our ships. He declared war on us. And we paid no attention to him. And we decided to do something that really basically violates, maybe if not the letter, the spirit of international law, which was to bomb Serbia in order to help the Muslim country. And really, we did it because Clinton was getting a lot of criticism for not having dealt with what was regarded as the Serbian attacks and inhumane treatment of the Bosnians who, and that was 5 years earlier. Clinton didn't do anything about it, and Clinton was criticized for that. Well, that one maybe he should have intervened in. This one, it was really just a war between two countries. We had no business being involved in it. There's a documentary that you should look at. Basically, his own people say that. Strobe Talbot, who was one of his major envoys, says this was a terrible mistake, really blot on America. So when we say like Russia was the first invasion, the first invasion of a European country since Hitler. First attack by a foreign country on a European country was the United States on Serbia since Hitler. And don't you know that that's used against us? But Clinton was not paying attention to anything. He wasn't paying attention to bin Laden. I do not believe September 11 would have happened if Clinton had been Trump. If Clinton had done to bin Laden what Trump did to Yemen over the last 2 months, when he took down the coal, that was an act of war. And not only was it an act of war, he declared war. He declared war on us. You know what we did? Nothing. We defended the lives of our sailors. They were so important to Clinton that I guess it was hard to pay attention with bombing Serbia and having to deal with Monica Lewinsky. Must have been hard to pay attention to something like the safety and security of his country. You can see I'm very bitter about it. And I'm very bitter about it because they treat him like he was some kind of president. We virtually didn't have a president. Not in terms of a average American president would have protected us against bin Laden. You take any one of those presidents in the 19th century whose names we forget, you think they would have allowed an attack on an American war vessel? I mean, Jefferson went to war for it. And we were a little teeny country then. I'm not even sure we had a navy. We didn't have the Marines. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, that's how we developed the Marines. Meanwhile, this guy had the biggest, strongest, most powerful military in the world, and he can't defend his men. Like, please take this seriously. This is not a partisan statement. This is a statement of a man who loves America. There's something seriously wrong with the modern Democratic Party. Not the many people who belong to it, many of whom probably don't pay attention to or are brainwashed. But the leadership, I mean, it's not confined to Biden or Obama. The whole deterioration, I believe, of morality and decency in the Democratic Party started with the guy that cheated his way through governor of Arkansas. I mean, there wasn't much many left in Arkansas after Bill and Hillary left.
Slick Willie.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell the stories of the shakedowns they used to do.
Right.
With her law firm, with her Rose law firm, you had to hire them.
Yeah, yeah. But they had the media on
And
their
then the guy
side.
who committed suicide, who knew the whole story about it. That was the beginning of the suicide.
A lot of suspicious deaths around the
Anybody
Clintons.
who
That's
possibly
for
has
sure.
evidence against the Clintons, and I'm not doubting their suicides. How do I know?
Yeah, right.
I mean, there are coincidences. 30, 40, 50 coincidences.
A lot. There's a lot there.
So let's look at, I don't feel like I explained what happened in Pakistan and India properly. And there are two possibilities now, right? So originally there was a terrorist attack in Kashmir on Indian Hindus by a Muslim extremist terrorist group that hailed from Pakistan. Now, Kashmir, there are two parts to Kashmir. There's the Kashmir that belongs to Pakistan, which is up here, okay? And you see this blue thing here? This is the Kashmir that's administered by India. Now, both of them claim it.
Right.
And both of them will go back to the division that was made, a very stupid, dumb, almost as dumb as Clinton's decision over the Balkans. And I'm a very, very big critic historically of all of the European, including American, decisions to redraw maps, which go back to the Congress of Vienna. And I believe I could trace every major war over the last 2 centuries to those decisions, it's tragic. I mean, the one that we accept pretty easily and don't think about it much is that the treaty that ended the First World War, in spite of Hitler being a horrible person, but the reason they would take advantage of that is because of the ridiculous nature of that treaty and how punitive it was and how arrogant it was. It just basically created countries in the Middle East, in Europe, with built-in animosity and a definite future of war. It's as if we had accepted the two-state solution in Israel, which comes out of Clinton also. You would have 20 years of war. You have a country, you set up a country called Palestine that is committed to the destruction of their neighbor. And a country that has to destroy Palestine before Palestine destroys them. Well, this is what we've been doing. This is what arrogant Europeans and Americans, mostly of the State Department variety, right? They've been drawing lines for people in countries they know nothing about. They believe they do, and the ones with English and European accents sound like they're very smart, but they're not. They're really very dopey.
Put some video.
So here's what they did. India was made up of all of this, right up to the China border. It was all India. However, in India, there was a minority Muslim population and a majority Hindu population. And when they existed as a colony of the United Kingdom, Britain, the British Empire, there was turmoil between them, but not outright warfare. When they fought for and obtained, through Gandhi, right, their independence, the UK decided they were going to draw the lines for them. And I believe, and I'm going to have to go back and check this, I believe Churchill, this is his one big mistake. He did something you should never do. He set up a religious country. He set up a country based just on religion. So he took all of, or made available to all of the Muslims in India, he cut out a piece of, or two pieces of India, one on the eastern side and one on the western side. That also is hard to believe. I mean, they're separated by about 800 miles. And he said, all the Muslims can go live there. You leave India and go live in that part of India, which is now going to be called Pakistan. Well, many left, many didn't leave. But what's left behind was tremendous anger. Anger by the people that were forced to go to Pakistan and thrown out of their country because they were Muslim. And anger by the Indians that a portion of their country was taken away, a big portion of their country was taken away from them. Up here. The status of Kashmir, the blue area here, was never resolved. And there was a big war between Pakistan and India over it. And the war was settled, and Kashmir was considered an autonomous zone, but India was put in charge of it. So it's never been resolved. The Pakistanis and the Indians do not agree on who controls Pakistan. The Indians control it. So several weeks ago, 20 plus Hindus were killed by Pakistani or Pakistani Muslim terrorist group. This goes on all the time, but this was a large number, and it was right in the open. And the Indian government quite rightly said, we have to retaliate for that. And they retaliated yesterday, and they retaliated big time. They hit seven or nine targets. I can't. Yeah, they hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 targets. And the targets are all along the border between Kashmir and Pakistan. And they hit what they believe are terrorist encampments. And they believe they did not hit, they say they didn't hit cities. They didn't on purpose hit civilians. And the aim of it was to basically do what Israel did, to render useful the terrorist encampment. And these were major airstrikes, and they were highly successful. Operation Sindoor. Now, you have to understand both these countries, India, Pakistan, have armies. Both these countries have been at war with each other, major wars and small wars. And both these countries have nuclear weapons. But don't think that both these countries are equal. India is much more powerful, much richer. If they have nuclear weapons, there's no question that India's are of a advanced variety. Pakistan just scratching. And the armies are also not equivalent at all. India is, first of all, much bigger, not only richer. And India has been at war since it started. Now, they used to be an ally of the Soviet Union, India. And we were an ally of Pakistan. When the Muslim extremists started to develop, Pakistan now was used the way Bosnia-Herzegovina was used, and somehow our State Department favors Bosnia-Herzegovina over Serbia, even though 2 of the 9/11 terrorists came out of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Pakistan was used big time as a training ground for Islamic terrorists all over the world. So they have their own internal Islamic terrorist groups to terrorize India, and then they contribute to the Islamic terrorist movement all over the world. And they're a great place to go and train. So it was used by bin Laden. It was been used by all of the major terrorist groups. So it became a haven of terrorism. Because of that, and because the governments of India became more conservative and capitalistic and wanted to move out of the socialism that kept them one of the poorest countries in the world, over a period of time, the alliances switched. And the period of time was from about under Clinton through Bush. The alliances switched. Pakistan became a big ally of Russia and of China, anti-American. India, increasingly one of our stronger allies. And under Modi, big time. Now, you have to credit Bush with making the key deal. I was in India to celebrate that. The key deal that flipped that. And that was allowing India the peaceful use of nuclear weapons. We still object to their nuclear weapons, but we allow them the peaceful use of nuclear weapons. And it actually was very, very brilliant to do because it has us involved in their nuclear security. So now we've had 2 hits, right? We had the terrorism hit. So Pakistan got a shot at India. Right. India hit back the way Israel hits back. You know, the terrorist hit was of one dimension. The hit they did was unbelievable. I mean, they just basically, they took out, I think, every terrorist installation they know of. And they did it quickly and they did it surgically. And they have a much better Air Force. The level of corruption in Pakistan, even when they were an ally of ours, was disgraceful. I mean, many of the corruption cases that led to the Foreign Corruption Act come from Bhutto and during his reign in Pakistan. Even though he was an ally of ours, all of our American military industrial complex in order to build airports and airfields, and we're paying them off like big time. I mean, major amounts of bribes. So when people say, you know, the American military industrial complex, will you please go back to Eisenhower because he got it right from the beginning. It's one of the major sources of foreign corruption through our military distribution of our military. And then when we say things like, oh, all that money we gave to Ukraine, they bought from American companies. That's how the kickbacks happen.
Right.
McConnell was saying, I don't know if McConnell said that because he's demented now, or because given the fact that his father-in-law is rich as a result of the Red Chinese, has just lost all sense of perspective. And the old man has given him well over $5 million. And he's a billionaire because of Red China. That's our former majority leader. But you don't know that because they never report that. It's not important that you know that his father-in-law and the father of a cabinet member in 2 administrations is a Taiwanese who became a billionaire based on the Red Chinese government. Now, you know enough history to know that's impossible. A Taiwanese is not going to be favored and become a billionaire under the Red China unless he's a traitor to Taiwan.
Right.
Which he is. And if you take a look at McConnell's positions, he used to be very hard against China. Then he became, a China suck-up.
Right.
And if you want to know why he opposes Trump so much, that's why he opposes Trump so much. Cut out this other stuff. The old grandfather, I mean, they all hate him for going after China. All the China purchased business people and politicians hate Trump. he lost a massive amount of campaign money by going against China in 17 and 18 and 19.
Right.
And I know some of the people who walked out on him.
Right.
And here's one of the reasons I admire him so much. Basically told him to go to hell.
And
he's our only president that's ever done anything about China. Now, in fairness, some
Nixon.
Well, no, some at the beginning. I don't blame Nixon and Kissinger. That was an opportunity to take.
Right.
I mean, it was even more justifiable than teaming up with Stalin.
Right.
To try to win the war. What I say, you get to the 90s, if you don't start seeing that it isn't working, that this idea that you're going to make China into a capitalist country, not so unrealistic. There was a chance we could have made it into a capitalist country, but that was going to convert to a liberal democracy.
Mm.
Well, then you're starting to be really foolish. And as people started to be foolish, China started to spread money around so that if they started to think we should oppose China, they would be completely fooled.
Right. And Mayor, bringing it back, including, keeping China in the conversation with this India-Pakistan conflict. I don't know how much people realize that this is also kind of a U.S. versus China issue in terms of who's arming who. China now accounts for over 80% of Pakistan's armament, right?
And we account for most of India's.
And we're most of India. So this is another.
Also, our training. We've done a lot to train the Indian Air Force.
Right. And so that's another element of this conflict, right? That changes things from even like 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, there was a little skirmish, but it was enough at the time to cause great concern. Mike Pompeo, I believe, was woken up in the middle of the night at one point because of movement of nuclear armaments on both sides.
This is not a time to be leaning on China.
Right. But that's what Pakistan's doing.
You're going to fall down.
And isn't that what Pakistan is now doing?
Yeah, but Pakistan's got no place to go. Pakistan leans on Russia. Russia's, just getting by with the Ukraine war. They got to go get North Koreans to fight the war for them. They're not going to be able to help Pakistan. You think China can help Pakistan? China is close to a major depression.
Yeah.
But you don't know it, but because they won't tell you that.
Right.
But China was in deep trouble before the tariffs.
Right.
Because Xi Jinping abandoned completely Deng and the other policies that tried to really what they were trying to do was to create a capitalist economy and a communist political system. Our hope was that if he created a capitalist economy, the lure of that and the overwhelming benefits of that took Europe away from communism, right, would happen in China. And if you now look at Chinese history, that was never in the cards.
Never.
Even the Chinese moderates, who might not have been warriors like Xi Jinping, never intended to change the communist political system. They were all dedicated communists willing to accept a non-socialist economic system, but a communist political system. Now you go figure out what that is, and you're good.
Right.
But and then when Xi came along, he just went right back to Mao.
Right.
Now we're going to be completely authoritarian. But the small amount of rights that the Chinese were able to get after Mao, he's taken back completely.
Right.
And this is why you have to protest. I mean, the students are protesting, the merchants are protesting, and people are starving. I mean, the country is half a poor country.
Right. And it's hard
It's not America. It's not Europe even.
And it's hard to know, right, Mayor? Like, how deep are these protests? What kind of trouble is she in? We know
that's why he should
he's
be
having
pushed.
issues.
There's no reason to defer to him.
And and like you said, they're not in any position to back up Pakistan in a growing conflict with India. There's no way.
The one place I would like a little more time to make sure we're ready is Taiwan. But I really do think if we had to defend, we can be diplomatic and say, are you going to defend Taiwan? Well, we don't have an absolute obligation to do it. We'll have to consider. Of course, we got to defend Taiwan.
Right.
Because defending Taiwan is defending the Philippines, Japan. Those two could be our strongest allies in the next decade.
Right.
Japan, Israel, the Philippines,
Vietnam.
Your allies come to a great extent when you share
India.
common enemies.
India
And India, Japan, and the Philippines are in much more conflict with China than we are. I mean, China has taken away from the Philippines their ocean. They call it the South China Sea. It's just as much the South Philippine Sea as it is the South China Sea or the South Japan Sea.
Right.
But you think? I mean, you think they don't realize that?
Yeah. And that's the big. That's
why I don't understand this Cardinal Tagle, who's Philippine and pro Red China.
Oh, he is.
Well, I mean, he agrees with the Chinese picking bishops.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's
I don't
tough.
understand how you can be a cardinal in the Catholic Church and want communists to help pick. You want they don't ask Americans and their
But the
opinion
president,
of bishop. They don't ask the African countries. They don't ask the European countries or even the South American countries.
Right.
But they ask the damn communist countries that are dedicated to destroying Christianity.
Isn't it backwards? And the media will okay that. But if you ever
When
say
I was
Trump,
a little altar boy, and at the end of a Catholic mass, you prayed for the deliverance of Russia from communism, deliverance of the world from atheistic communism.
Right.
Because Our Lady of Fatima told us to do that.
Right.
Well, somehow, the brainiacs in the Vatican had forgotten that.
And, I mean, India was
Rudy
close.
Remembers it, the altar boy, but not the Cardinals.
The what that reminds me, my dad always talks about Latin Mass back in the day. There's this big push against it out of the Vatican, and I still don't
not understand.
Yeah, I don't either.
I understand these things we're talking about because it comes about through infiltration. The Chinese infiltrated the Vatican as much as they've infiltrated the United States.
Right.
But what do they care about the Latin Mass for? If I like the Latin Mass, why can't they leave me alone? I mean, it's the one language I ever really learned. I never learned French as well as Latin.
English and Italian.
People say, well, what languages can you speak?
Yeah.
English and Latin. I can't speak Latin. Nobody speaks it, but I can read it.
What do you mean no one speaks
Go
it?
get my missal. Go get my St. Joseph's missal.
Well, what do you mean no one speaks Latin?
Nobody ever speaks Latin anymore.
Oh, you're saying, yeah.
You know why The Passion of the Christ is a great movie? Because it's done in the original languages. So in The Passion of the Christ,
you see it?
Jesus and his disciples speak Aramaic, which is what the Jews spoke. They didn't speak Hebrew as a vernacular language.
Right.
Hebrew was like Latin. Hebrew was the language of the scholars and the rabbis.
Right. Okay.
That's how they debated the Torah.
Wow.
The language of the street was Aramaic.
Oh.
So Jesus of Nazareth, who was an educated, somewhat educated rabbi, spoke Hebrew, but in the street he spoke
you said missile.
Missile.
Oh,
that's a
sorry.
book.
The non-Catholic member of the staff
Not
understand it.
Not this kind of missile.
Yeah.
This kind of missile.
Yeah. That's okay. Stephen gets a pass. He's not Catholic.
It's a black book, a little one.
It's a book, Stephen.
It's on the
bedstand.
No, it's on the thing below the television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
this goes back to 1962. This is what they're fighting over.
So at what point are you willing to, let's say, we'll use the word work, not capitulate to a communist regime if it's an effort to grow the church? At what point are these missionaries, right? Think back to the old days, the missionaries that came over to the early United States and traversed the waterways and met with these Indians.
I'm willing to do what Jesus did with the Roman Empire. It's not the church should be allowed to function and teach its teachings and stay out of politics. Now that gets a little complicated with communism, and maybe I'm wrong about that, and I have to think about that.
Yeah.
Remember, John Paul II is a saint because he opposed communism,
right?
And he helped defeat communism,
right?
So if you were to say who were the three people that had the most to do with delivering Europe from communism without firing a shot, it's Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John II, who was a Pole who grew up under the terrors of first Nazism and then communism.
Right.
And it's almost impossible for a man of faith
He was in jail.
to stay
He was
out
put
of
in jail.
politics.
He was put
And
in
Paul-
jail by the communists.
By the communists.
Paul,
Right.
John Paul
Yeah.
II.
I mean, there's absolutely no way you can square communism with really any religion. I mean,
that
it's
must be going crazy with. But go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say there's no way to remove yourself if you have faith from the political process, because so many of the issues are very fundamental to how a lot of people
Yeah,
believe.
it's a little more complicated than Jesus did.
Yeah, and advocacy from the church, I appreciate it a lot. They help us out a lot in a lot of situations. I wouldn't mind a little bit more help sometimes, especially up
well,
where,
the Catholic
where we
Church, the
are.
Catholic Church could vote a little bit more Republican. That'd be a start.
Please.
In
No,
America.
I think it did
In America,
this time.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Ooh.
I think we're getting them back, and I guess we lost them under Kennedy. Maybe before that, right?
But now they're
working
gone,
class
now they've
Democrat
gone
Party went hand
full
in
woke.
hand.
Democrats are
The Catholics were always Democrats.
Working class
Remember,
back in the day.
The Catholics are mostly made up of immigrants.
Working class immigrants.
They're all made up of immigrants.
Yeah.
You start with the Germans. The Germans and the Austrians are, pretty much 50-50 Lutheran and Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
Depends on the part of Southern Germany tends to be more Catholic and Northern Germany tends to be more Lutheran.
Right.
Because Luther operated in Northern Germany. And the parts of Germany closer to Austria remain more loyal to the Roman Catholic Church.
Right.
The ones closer to Rome.
Right.
Even as you go to the northern countries, like one of the candidates for cardinal is a Swedish cardinal.
Wait, for cardinal or for pope?
For pope. I'm sorry, he is a cardinal. Now this is really hard to believe because there are very few Catholics in Sweden.
Yeah.
Very, very few.
Well, hey, maybe let's change that, right?
Tiny. I mean, this shouldn't matter, but I mean, I guess he's a very, very impressive guy.
A lot of Lutherans.
Speed.
A lot of
yeah, they have their own church.
Northern
John
Scandinavia.
Calvin.
Calvinism.
Calvin.
Calvin College, Michigan.
What's
Calvinism.
their deal? What's
And
the Calvin?
The Swedish have their own church. It's like a Swedish national church.
Right. Well,
I guess it is mostly Lutheran.
Apostolic Lutherans.
I don't know that church really well.
Right. Right. But that's a good point.
I mean, the churches I know the best and studied to be a priest are the Episcopal, the Orthodox, the Lutheran, the Methodist, the establishment churches.
Episcopalian.
I don't even know that
Methodist,
much about the
Orthodox,
evangelicals from back then. I learned about them now because they weren't as relevant back then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now they were the backbone of the Republican Party from 19.
I'll give a good shout out. A shout out to
2000.
my home church people, though. I still appreciate people who do the home church route. And
Of course.
What's the home church route?
Oh, where you gather with your friends and neighbors in your home and you celebrate the scriptures and you break bread and have fellowship.
Nothing wrong with that.
A lot of people do it. I got picked up in a van called Bible 2 that had the license plate when I was out in California, and I went to a home church with these people. And we were singing in the car and, sharing
That's
love.
isn't that the way the early Christians?
Yeah, that's what made it so nice. I
Early
love
Christians,
it.
early Christians had their services in homes, in catacombs, underground.
Well, that's one of the knocks on Catholicism. Even some of my friends growing up, non-Catholics, they thought we were a little bit too, we're big on the symbolism and the statues and the.
We are.
But I was very proud of our great.
Speaking of,
church.
bring back the papal tiara. I think that'll be that's a fun step.
We
how
are
do we
very,
explain
very elaborate.
Yeah.
And very it is the Roman Catholic Church, so there's a tremendous influence of Italians on it.
Yeah.
And Italians are histrionic and theatrical,
like
and
gold,
operatic. And where opera comes from the Mass.
Yes.
You wouldn't have opera
taught
if
me
you
that.
didn't have the Roman Catholic sung Mass.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't in the early days before 1600. You could not do a secular musical piece.
It was all religious.
Catholics and Protestants both opposed the use of music for secular purposes. It wasn't until Henry VIII on the Protestant side, Luther, who was a great composer of hymns, and the Gregorian chant in the Catholic Church that started to develop Western music.
Wow.
Well, we're way off the point. Let me go through the tough and the difficult things we have to tell people about so that they don't get brainwashed. Okay.
Yep. Let's go through it.
You
won't hear anywhere else.
The Israelis are complaining that they were not told about the so-called peace with the Houthis, but they're also complaining that they are kind of cut out of what's going on in the Middle East, and that he's not going to Israel. And I I'm just reporting that. I don't have a feel for, is there a strategy to that or isn't there? Because I don't blame I would do it too, because, you know, if you keep your mouth shut, you get walked all over. But I kind of have faith that Trump is so loyal to Israel that I wouldn't worry about it. The talks with China this weekend have changed a little from Trump's early statements. Trump is now saying he'll negotiate other things, but he's not going to lift the tariffs on China. I think forget the Wall Street Journal and all of our anti-American reporters and whatever who don't understand tariffs. They're working. Now, whether they're working in terms of the economy is one side, but they're working for the purpose of why we used them with China. We're using them with China as a war. We're trying to destroy and break China's economy because China wants to control us. And now, if you think I'm making that up, this is like Churchill telling you better worry about Hitler, or other people telling you better worry about bin Laden. It's written down. Xi Jinping has a date. It's a 2048 or 49. He wants to be able to be the primary major power in the world. Now, China doesn't want to do that to guide the world to liberal democracy. China wants to do it to control the world under communism. Part of that is, the only way you can do that is by breaking the United States. We may be the only thing standing in his way. So they are our avowed enemy. And we treat them, except for Trump, we treat them like they're just an economic rival. They are they're a rival to the death.
Yeah.
So he is Trump, seeing that the tariffs are working, now is no longer saying I may relax the tariffs. He said, we'll negotiate other things, because he sees that the tariffs are crushing them. They're already operating at less than break even on most of their exports. And they're getting strikes in a good number of their factories because they're laying people off. And I'll tell you two things that are being destroyed. Those little crap companies, Temu and what's the other? Shein. Yep. Basically, they're going to stop selling in the United States. They have a 245% tariff. That means what they were selling for $3, they have to sell for $12.
And it's basically garbage anyway.
It is garbage. I mean, in fact, the environmentalists love it because they say there'll be a lot less crap running around the United States if people stop buying from them.
Yeah.
That's the old-fashioned made in China, where they made junk.
Yes.
But they make a fortune, those two companies. Temu is constantly,
which is crazy. They have descended
Temu
around
is constantly
the world.
sending me advertisements.
Yeah.
On the, I didn't even know what it was, and then I saw it was China, but even I can't get them off. They want to sell me big discounts at Temu. What are you selling? Earplugs. You mean earplugs? $2 earplugs. You put in your ear like that. I don't want $2 earplugs.
You want to spend a lot on earplugs. Well, your ears are
important. Well, now the $2 earplugs.
You got to be able to hear.
Now the $2 earplugs cost $12.
Ah. You can make your own earplugs out of cotton and cotton balls, Vaseline.
These bitter workers feel the tariff pinch. So you should know that whether you agree or disagree with these tariffs, they're having a disproportionately massive effect, as this little excerpt says by a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Trump's tariff adds stress to an already teetering Chinese economy. But the Wall Street Journal are against the tariffs. Right. Because maybe Rupert Murdoch tells them they have to be in favor of China.
That's too bad.
India, Pakistan, the question is, do they go any further? They've both hit each other. Are they even now? Pakistan may do some kind of retaliation. I think if it's measured and careful, we might avoid an all-out war, although there is some shooting going on, I am told. I mean, there is some engagement by ground troops. I don't know exactly what that constitutes. I'll try to find out. But you see how, I mean, you see how they're all like intertwined with each other. There's another map, and you see how close to China they are. There's China. China's sitting on top of both of them, right?
Right.
And here's Kashmir, and those are where the attacks took place, when India attacked them. So this is theoretically part of India, but not accepted by Pakistan. And I don't know what China has left with all the help they're giving Russia to help Pakistan.
Well, it's hard to see, but also one thing to not forget is the amount of water that has to travel through India to get to Pakistan. They have cut it off.
One of the commentators tonight, who's pro Trump and pro India, says Trump was assessing whether it's going to escalate, and he says the one thing that India did that could escalate it is it's cut off the water from Pakistan.
Well, that's one of the most basic human.
I mean, they could starve them to death.
Yeah, we need water to live.
Yeah, but you also shouldn't.
That's what I'm saying. You don't mess with
terrorists.
That's what I'm saying. Don't mess with someone who can control your water. Your means of living. Don't mess with them, right?
Yeah, and Pakistan's two sponsors are in deep trouble right now.
Yeah,
China and Russia.
But that's why I do not want a world war.
Russia has
Russia
no time for them, right? When you think about it, Russia has no time for them. There's another way of looking at it. It might make it easier to see. There's China. There's India. There's a disputed territory of as you get on this is where the attacks took place in here, and this is the Pakistani Kashmir. This is the Indian Kashmir. A little complicated, but But now remember, this was all China. This was all India.
Yes.
This is a made-up country. It's carved out so the Muslims can
like an
India
ethno state.
Yeah, a religious state.
Yeah.
And I think uniformly thought of as a great mistake. A recipe for constant war.
What year did that come into being?
47 or 49.
Yeah, like pretty darn recent.
Yeah, 47 or 49.
Like my dad remember it or something. You know?
I remember it really well because they celebrate their Independence Day on the same day.
Yes.
And they have competing parades in New York.
Right.
And what I did was they all wanted the same street. They wanted Madison Avenue. And I made a deal with them. They'd alternate every year.
I'd give India almost.
Well, for what?
I'd give
for
India a little more.
I'm sorry. You alternated
for their Independence Day parade.
So they wanted their Independence Day parade on the closest Sunday to Independence Day. The Indians did, and the Pakistanis did.
And it's the same day.
But if they had their parade together, they would kill each other. So and really there was no other street. I wasn't going to give them Fifth Avenue because they didn't want any more Fifth Avenue parades. We have enough, and the people on Fifth Avenue want to do away with all the parades.
Is there an Indian part of town in New York? Kind of all of it.
No,
Really.
a lot of them come in from New Jersey and Long Island.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Long Island is where a lot of them.
Oh, and New Jersey too. There's a big Indian and Pakistan population.
Chinese and Queens.
Both. There's both a lot of Indians in Queens. A lot of the big Indian community in Queens.
Where's City Field located? Flushing.
Yeah. A lot of Indians there. Yeah. And a lot of Asians. I mean, I think Asians are the biggest ethnic group in Queens, New York. The Asian population in New York has increased dramatically. It was increasing when I was mayor.
Right.
And it's really funny because both the Pakistanis and the Indians voted for me, even though the Indians at that time were all Democrats, but they were conservative.
But we're making
now
major.
They're all Republicans.
We're making major inroads with the Indian community, and we already have. They're conservative people. Our values are their values,
even on foreign policy now.
Right.
Right. Because of China.
Because of China. And China.
And again, because of Bush and Trump. Trump is a great relationship.
Yeah, and values.
And India used to be a pretty, or I don't know if they call it an ally, but they were supported by the Soviet Union, right, back in the day.
Yeah, and Vance did a great job going over there.
Well, and I'll tell you where the woke shit doesn't fly. Definitely not in India.
Yeah.
Try. Oh my gosh, these kids won't go home and tell them they got their ears pierced or something. Like imagine, I'm a woman, father. They'd be like, oh my god.
It looks like it looks like the air traffic controllers and the whole situation there.
That's tough.
That is tough. That is tough. But I think Sean Duffy was the right guy, and he really is on top of it.
That's right.
So,
and we do have a clip from him.
But he's got a lot of work to do.
But he articulated it well. Do we want to quickly hear from him?
No, what I really want to do, because I'm a frivolous person,
Okay.
I want to show Jasmine Crockett, my favorite member of Congress. I want to show her stepping all over people in wheelchairs because of her lack of sensitivity to disabled people, which pretty much is what most Democrats would do because they're so goddamn important.
Right. So we're gonna bring it up here.
I mean, you just walk right in front of them, push them all aside.
Right.
This is the champion of the poor people. Let's go to that.
Yeah, right there.
It's not a video.
Oh, we don't have video of it. It's only a picture. So
we don't have the video.
There is no video of it. It was.
There is.
Oh, is there? Okay, I'll look for the video, Steven. I'm gonna bring up the pictures we have.
If you can get it, good.
Yeah, here it is. Here are the pictures, though. We're gonna try to make it big screen.
You don't really see it well in the pictures. You don't.
There it is.
You don't really see it well in the pictures.
She like actually has contempt for these like disabled people.
Is there video of it?
I can't. I'm not seeing any.
I know
video.
the famous picture is this.
There's video of it. But in any event,
yeah.
Let me go on here. So
I'm sure there'll be more. I'm sure.
Let
she'll
everybody
do it
go
again.
to sleep.
Yeah.
So as I said, Sheen and Temu are getting wiped out in America. They're actually thinking of stopping business in America, which would really be great. That would mean a lot less crap in the streets.
Right.
Because people throw it all out. People who are having weddings, a certain number of them are complaining that they have to pay more. They may have to pay more for flowers. Geez, I think when you compare the possibility that China may control us by 2050 and we all be speaking Chinese, to whether you could have a massive amount of flowers at your wedding, I think maybe the first is more important, huh? So a few less flowers, and they all get wasted anyway. What do you do with all those flowers?
And grow your own flowers too. I mean, make a project.
What are you going to
out
do
of
with
it.
all those flowers? I mean, I used to get flowers all the time when I was mayor. I have no idea why they would send flowers to a male mayor who is not trans. And the reality is, I used to give them to the hospitals. Some days I get 5 bushes of flowers. What am I going to do with roses? I didn't put them around my office. First, I would give them to
the ladies.
To the ladies.
The ladies in the office.
But then after a while, they didn't want them.
You should
So we would
see.
They
send
realized
them-
it was just
we
a
would send them-
hand-me-down.
We would send them to hospitals.
You should see how on the west side of Michigan, we'll probably have 1 bouquet of roses at an event, but about 8 different people will get roses because we just pass the same roses around at the event.
There may also be a shortage of Bordeaux and Chianti.
Is that wine?
That could be tough.
It's be tough for some of these.
Why don't you try
these liberal?
Why don't you try California wine, which is really Bordeaux, but they're not allowed to call it Bordeaux because it doesn't come out of the crappy soil of Bordeaux. And Chianti, believe me, the wines in California are just as good as the Italian wines.
Better.
And the wines in California, by the way, are just as good as a lot of the French wines. In fact, they've won competitions against them, but nobody wants to tell you that either.
Chianti.
It's just all brand power that they have in France.
Bordeaux is a combination of grapes that you can do anywhere. And you have to call it Bordeaux because because the French,
it's not you. Oh.
the entitled French require that you call it Bordeaux. You have to call it based on the terroir. The terroir.
Was that the earth?
Yeah. You name the wine after the earth. Terroir.
Yeah.
Isn't that's like that's funny.
Very tough. Shortage of flowers.
We have to make it
instead of having 45 flowers at a wedding, you can only have 10 now. Flowers.
Unless you grow your own, then you can have as many as you want.
Look, it is well worth it to end Chinese dominance.
Right.
We know we covered quite sufficiently the other night how the justices are allowing Trump to go ahead with doing what he should do as commander in chief with the military and get rid of the trans people.
Right.
Also, the $400,000 levy that puts on people if a member of the military wants to change their sex, the military has to pay for it. I'd be damned if we have to pay for somebody's mutilating themselves. They shouldn't be able to do it anyway. There is a great book, and I'm going to go over it tomorrow night. I'm going to try to get him on the show. And I want you to, I've read excerpts from the book, but I'm going to have the whole book tomorrow. The Affirmative Action Myth by probably one of the best columnists in America, Jason Riley. And what he does, he's a black man, and what he does is to show how affirmative action, to a large extent, did unbelievable damage to the black community that was moving up the middle class rapidly until dependency came along and lack of standards. They were doing really well meeting up to the standards. And then affirmative action. Maybe. Jason is a very, very fine man, and Malcolm X, I probably don't agree with on anything with this. Malcolm X, in his book, wrote, biggest enemy of the black people, white liberals. Why do you think he said that? Because white liberals treat the black community in a certain way like they're still dependent and should be dependent on them. And they want to keep them that way so that they can dominate their vote. And just in case that changes, that's why they're bringing in all the illegals. Because nobody's going to vote for Democrats if they're smart, ever. I mean, as Churchill said, if you're not a liberal when you're 20, you have no heart. And if you're not a conservative by the time you're 40, you have no brain. So by the time your brain starts to work and you listen to these ridiculous solutions like we should bring rapists back to, because they didn't do enough rapes when they were in America. You say to yourself, I'm not going to be a member of that stupid political party. We have a massive intelligence operation now going on in Greenland, which we didn't have before. And if even that comes out of this was a very smart thing to do.
Right.
Because Greenland is particularly for the Russians, something they think of as a way of mounting an attack against us if they can get control of it. Because remember, the advantage we have over both China and Russia, and we gave a lot of it back because they paid off Biden, but our bases are in much closer proximity to them, major ones, than they are to us. So in a nuclear war or a ballistic missile war, distance is enormously important, even with hydroponic missiles, where we have made great strides, by the way. Although this is very top secret, a little bit leaked out, so I feel like I can repeat it. We've made great strides in kind of reversing that. We covered Mr. Tillis, right? We covered Mr. Tillis.
Where's this guy come off thinking he gets to choose? Did he run for president? Does he get to choose the?
I don't get it. Why don't you educate yourself, Senator, on what happened on January 6th? Really, you're living in a dream world if you think that was an insurrection, and you're living in a dream world if you don't think it was orchestrated by Nancy Pelosi at all. Why does she not turn over her records? What was the daughter doing filming it with a Hollywood crew? Why do they never identify the 240 Antifa people that were there? There's an email.
We got to put that out again.
That lays that out 2 days later that they were successful in getting 247 Antifa people in. The FBI were minor in compared to Antifa.
We should send something.
Have you ever heard that before? Was there any effort to identify the Antifa people? Were any Antifa people prosecuted?
We should send this to his
office. How about the two guys that were knocking down the wall to try to get in who should have been shot? Not Ashley Babbitt, if anybody's going to be shot.
Yeah.
Who were they? Well, I happen to know one of them was Antifa. He didn't get prosecuted. He was knocking down a wall and he didn't get prosecuted because the whole damn thing was corrupt.
Yeah.
And it was orchestrated.
It was a setup.
So, Senator, come on. Make believe you have a brain and use it.
It's absurd. And
well, there was a study. I hope nobody paid a lot for this. There was a study that showed the more police you have, the more crime goes down. You got to really study that.
Yeah.
The more police you have, and
that's
they show
something. I wonder how much that study
massive
cost.
amount of crime that took place when they had the defund the police movement.
Right.
Based on the Floyd protests, an awful lot of people got killed. So why do they have a statue to this guy? I mean, okay, he was killed. You may think unjustifiably. Some people think he died of a drug overdose. But the guy was a complete scoundrel. I mean, he was a complete horrible human being. Beat up women, beat up children.
Held a pregnant woman at gunpoint?
Yeah. And he was
It's
completely,
crazy.
he was completely stoned when he died.
Yeah, right. But
he was a cop beater.
By the way,
okay, and maybe he got killed unjustifiably or not.
Right.
But you don't put up a statue to him so a lot of kids can be like, you want your kid to be like George Floyd, a bum?
They know how to pick them between that
Just
and
because
Abrego
you get
Garcia
killed,
too.
just because you die doesn't make you a good person.
Right. And the fact that the way they use that.
It's the beginning of the manipulation. It's like January 6th and the George Floyd thing leading to riots. I mean, 20, 30 people got killed as a result of those riots. People got murdered as a result of those riots.
And the damage to cities and
these race baiters like nothing more than a dead black man, because that's who serves their purpose. They don't. Where were they in George Floyd's life before he died? Right. They don't care about George Floyd until after he's dead, and they can use his death to push to push their race baiting narrative to divide us.
So we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back at 7 on Lindell TV and X, and we'll be back here at 8 o'clock on America's Mayor Live. And I'm holding back because I don't have time for it now. There was an attack on a little Chihuahua by 2 pit bulls in New York, and they almost killed the Chihuahua. It needed emergency surgery. These pit bulls have already killed another dog. And the 2 people when you look at the 2 people, the very heavy, fat people have the dogs. And it looks, you have some of that there. See, they're trying to get the dog away from getting it out of the pit bull's mouth. And the owner of the dog got a cane and stuck it in the pit bull's mouth and got the dog out. Now, what happened is this guy is walking his Chihuahua. And these 2 fat people are walking their pit bulls. And one of the pit bulls you see the pit bull there? One of the pit bulls gets the Chihuahua and those are the people walking away. They're escaping so they don't get arrested. The 2 fat people.
The poor little Chihuahua.
Well, but I want you to realize that it isn't, these dogs were abused by these people. This is
probably allegedly.
No, I'm going to tell you for sure because I'm going to tell you what they did. The first dog got the Chihuahua. The fat woman then let the other dog off the leash to join the dog that possibly had inadvertently sort of disturbed, and that one deliberately went after it as if to defend the other pit bull. This was an orchestrated attack. Now these people have a history back in December of another dog being attacked and one being killed by these 2 pit bulls. They go around the city using these pit bulls to kill dogs. And they train these poor pit bulls to do it. Now, the pit bull trained properly can be a wonderful dog. It used to be a child's dog 100 years ago. And then they found out that it has strong jaws. And they train it to fight because there are maybe 4 or 5 dogs in that category that would be excellent fighting dogs. But it's not their temperament. They're trained to be that way. And they began as totally different kinds of dogs. The pit bull, when it first developed in England, was a child's dog. And you bring up a pit bull right, and it's about the most loving dog you're going to find. The creep here are those 2 fat people. And they should be in jail. And of course, New York doesn't have a criminal penalty for it. My God, we don't put people who murder human beings in jail, much less dogs. You can sue them civilly. But they deliberately, when you look at this, I'll get it out for you tomorrow and analyze it for you. This is a deliberate attack by these 2 people using the dogs. Probably they abused the damn dogs to get them that way. Well, yes, we should worry about dogs too. They're beautiful companions and they're wonderful. And people who do that with dogs do the same thing to human beings. And I remember kids like that used to start it off with dogs, and then they started off. I grew up in Brooklyn, and where'd you get that?
The internet's full of.
Well, maybe tomorrow we'll have a new pope, Hopefully, it'll be someone who doesn't agree with atheistic communism, and also has a proper respect for the greatest country on earth, the United States of America, and the greatest contributor to the Catholic Church. So I'm really hoping for that and praying for it. And so we'll be back tomorrow night. I want you to pray for Israel. I want you to pray for the people of Iran so that they're free. I want you to pray for the people of Ukraine who are still getting killed for nothing. And of course, pray for us and for the president, that he guides us correctly, and for those cardinals so they make a right choice for the world. So God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I take this obligation freely,
and that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
And that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of this office on which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties of this office of which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk,